for everyone that's on the call. Thank you so much for coming on to Omega Eta Zeta's third installment of More Than a Woman. My name is Charity Wallace, and I am the current vice president of Omega Eta Zeta Chapter. And I am so thankful to be here today to have this fruitful discussion. More Than a Woman has been an exception that really hones on final womanhood, which is one of our final principles as a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And in this particular installment, we are going to hear from the men today as we navigate issues in regards to domestic violence. And with the men on our panel as allies, I am so excited to have this discussion today. So welcome to More Than a Woman. Let's hear it for the boys. As with anything we do as members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, we have to pay tribute to our 5 wonderful pearls who are founders of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Arizona Cleveland Stimmons, Pearl and Neal, Myrtle Title Faithful, Viola Tyler Goings, and Fanny Petty Watts paved the way so that we as members of this organization could give back to our communities. Next slide, please. We also recognize our wonderful leadership, starting with our 26th International President and CEO, Dr. Stacy Ann Segrett. Moving on to another final woman, our 18th Atlantic Regional Director, the Honorable Beverly S. Tatum. Next slide, please. Also paying tribute to our wonderful 4th Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Director, Sharina D. Wright, Esquire. And of course, we also have to pay homage and tribute to our wonderful leader of Omega Eta Zeta Chapter, Sorority Daly, who was our current president. So I'm going to give it to her just to give us some greetings, and then we're going to the program.
Thank you, Sora Wallace. Welcome. We are so glad that all of you were able to join us today. We know that a Thursday evening at 6:30 is busy for some folks, but we are so glad that you took the time out to join us this evening for such an amazing and outstanding topic. Again, as my soror Charity Wallace stated, this is our 3rd iteration of this More Than a Woman series, and she didn't give herself kudos, but I will applaud her and give her her flowers, as this was her creation 3 years ago. So applause to you, Soror Wallace, for bringing it back around for our 3rd installment, and again, bringing the fellas on so that we can have this most dynamic conversation. Also want to give big shouts out to our partners over at Love Life Now Foundation, who will be moderating, and the fellows are going to be joining us today. So thank you for taking your time and partnering with us on this amazing topic. And we'd like to say welcome. You know, I'm a churchgoer, so welcome once, welcome twice, welcome 3 times. Don't be shy. We want you to make sure that you involve yourself in today's conversation when it gets to that point in time where we open it up for questions and conversation. I believe the chat is open, so make sure that y'all are in the chat. You can drop where y'all are you're at in the world, because we are streaming live, which is amazing for this iteration of our program. So we hope that you all have a wonderful time. We thank you again for joining us this evening. And again, thank you to our partners at Love Life Now Foundation for joining us for this amazing program, and all of our moderators and our honored guests today. Shout out to our sister sorors, sister Greeks, and sister organizations, and also our other chapters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority that are on with us today, other members of the Divine Nine, I believe, and I'm going to take the term from Love Life Now, our survivors and upstanders that have joined us on today. So we welcome you all. So we want y'all to have a good time. I'm going to throw it back over to Charity so that she can give us a couple of housekeeping rules, and then we're going to get this thing started. But thank you again for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Sora, for that wonderful introduction. All right, so housekeeping, first part. I'm just going to read this through. Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Omega Eta Zeta Chapter would like to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed on Facebook and will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube page for educational purposes. Please note that all of our panelists and our moderators are speaking from their experiences and learned knowledge, and this is for educational purposes only. Please take this time to do a deeper dive to learn more on domestic violence, education, and prevention. And this is only a brief snippet to the inside of this topic. Next slide, please. As far, as far as housekeeping rules, I'm asking that all of our guests stay on mute. Unless you're asking a question, we will have a Q&A session, but you can also put your information or your questions in the chat throughout this event so that we will read those questions when we get to that question. Feel free to provide any feedback. You don't have to just ask questions. If you have a statement, if you want to say yes or no or why, whatever you want to state, please feel free. This is a free space. And above all, relax and enjoy this conversation. Next slide, please. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I would love to introduce today our moderator, Tanya Oliveira, who will be leading this discussion today. I'm not going to read through all of this, but she is a dedicated advocate for domestic violence awareness, and she is the Community Engagement Director for Love Life Now. She bridges the gap for advocacy, education, and direct support resources for survivors of domestic violence. Her journey began as a survivor seeking safety and support, and she now leads community outreach, survivor engagement, and awareness initiatives within Love Life Now. She has expertise in domestic violence advocacy, mental health education, coaching, and community partnerships. She is a 2024 Myra Craft MVP Award recipient, so give it up to her for that. And she is recognized for her outstanding volunteerism and dedication to social change. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to introduce Tanya Oliveira, who will lead the discussion moving forward.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya, as she said, Oliveira, and I have the honor of serving as the Community Engagement Director for Love Life Now, and I am your moderator for the evening. I would like to first send a extended heartfelt thank you to Omega Eta Zeta Chapter sorority for hosting us in this vital conversation. Too often, men, there isn't a safe space for them to openly and honestly share their experiences and their perspectives on domestic violence. But tonight, we are here to listen. Your stories matter, your voices matter, and you should be heard too. So, first up, we have Rob DeMio. I always say this wrong and I apologize. Born and raised in Somerville, Rob is a community outreach coordinator for Sunrise Detox, and he is a dedicated advocate for those battling addiction. After finding sobriety in 2015, he realized that his own mother had suffered in silence as a victim. And I hate that word, so I will say what we call it, and it's a survivor of domestic violence. Determined to honor her, he has since been an outspoken advocate, walking in LLN's Heal-a-thon, sharing her story on local news, and using social media platforms to guide survivors towards resources. His dedication has led him to be recognized, his recognition during our LLN White Ribbon Night Ambassador in 2022. Thank you, Rob, for joining us today. Next slide, please. And we have our guy here, Antonio. He has been with Love Life Now since the beginning. He is the co-founder at Love Life Now. He is also the co-founder and executive director of, I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm gonna butcher it. Antonio, you can chime in on the name. So sorry.
Metanoia.
Okay.
Metanoia. Community change.
Community Change, an organization dedicated to ending violence in our communities through proactive prevention, intervention, and education. Over the last 13 years, he has definitely been a community advocate, putting change all throughout everything that he does throughout the Southeastern conferences, at the NFL, NBA, Major League Lacrosse, Boston Red Sox, and numerous colleges during their athletic programs. His expertise is tailoring each session to engage participants in difficult conversations about male awareness against violence. Antonio is, we're so glad to have him on our board. He is such a leader in his way to make sure that men know that they should also be upstanders. Next slide, please.
Tanya, you are good to go. We're going to dive into our conversation.
Thank you. So now let's hear it from the boys, right? If this is your platform, we'd love to hear what you have to say because your voices matter. And so we're going to start this off with hearing from you first, Antonio. And though Rob has lost a loved one due to domestic violence, you have spent most of your time in your life working on prevention and awareness. What are some of the common misconceptions about domestic violence that you aim to, dispel through your advocacy?
Right. Well, first I want to say, before I start, I want to make sure that people are listening or participating take care of themselves in this process, because we're having conversation that may be triggering. So make sure you take care of yourself. Call your peoples if you need to have another conversation about this. We'll be available because we're going to be real here. So that's an opportunity that we have. And to have dudes talking about stuff like this, where society always told us, oh, that's a woman's issue. Ain't got nothing to do with this. That's their business. They ain't got mind your business. We were told that growing up. So we learn how to mind our business. We never made it our business. And when we do make it our business, we get shunned for it. You know what I'm saying? So one of the misconceptions is it's not a male's business. It's not men's business. That's one thing. And the other thing is it happened to a certain demographic, which is not true. It happens everywhere. And given the opportunity to talk to people, to hear their stories, that when you have an opportunity to tell your story, and that's why I said this conversation is courageous, because it takes courage to put something like this. And unfortunately, we have men that do stand up, but they try to take over the platform, like they're the one who's going to save the situation. No, we just got permission to have a conversation with our sisters out there. We are just grateful and thankful that our whatever it is, we're able to give that, from collecting sheets and pillows, so we can give to people transitioning from shelters to shelters, coming up with opportunities to help people that are in a bad situation. So the thing is having conversation. That's a misconception. Men don't talk about this. We go to barbershop, we hear the conversation, sports, sex, video games, whatever it is, Occasionally, and that's why I tell barbers, my brother's a barber, he hears stories, but there's nowhere for him to drop that. So he carries that with him. So we're talking about survivors of that. He hears stories, so he just goes on with that every day. So that's all the people that do that are in tech world, cosmetology, all that. They hear stuff. People confide in them. So those are people that hopefully got some stories, no names, no nothing. Share, give other people permission to hear these stories. So and the other piece I want to say is, as far as male culture go, if you remember, we were able to give men permission to drink light beer. The only way we did that is get men who are in position of leadership, and they use Bubba Smith and this other guy. When they say, tastes great, they say less feeling, or less feeling tastes great. Remember that routine? Okay, so they use sport. They use the toughest men, the most popular men, to get men to drink light beer. Because otherwise, a man cannot drink light beer. If we can make that change right there, that way, imagine what we could do if we put ourselves together to change the whole paradigm, the paradigm shift in what's going on in our culture. And this is what, listen, that's all I'm about. That's all I want to do, and give other people like the chance to use their platform to do the same thing. Yes, they're going to call you name, you're not popular, you this. I lost friend over that. But guess what, man? As long as you heard me, that's all I want. Okay? And just listen. Just listen. It's happening. All right? So that's me for now.
Thank you, Antonio. You are 100% correct. It is the largest stigma is always to think that this is something that, men can't talk about, or that it's just not happening to men, or, the conversation of, oh, you let a woman do X, Y, and Z to you. And it's, the stigma is there. But today thank you so much for just bringing that forward, because it is something that happens within, the male community as well. That you can be a thriver and experience these same things that are considered a women's issue, but it is for men as well. Rob, tell us one thing about your mom and your sister that you want the audience to know about their lives, something about their personalities, their spirit, achievements.
Yeah, my mother was amazing, right? So I struggled with an opiate addiction, heroin addiction for years. My mother was my biggest supporter in trying to get me clean. She was my cheerleader every time I went into treatment for my drug addiction. I ripped and ran for years all through the streets of Boston, and she was the only one that was on my team. My mother had the ability to love me when I couldn't love myself. My mother had the ability to see past other people's demons and love them when, sometimes there wasn't much to love. So I think that was like my mother's biggest and most great quality, was to be able to love people when they couldn't love themselves. And I think that quality is what led to her murder.
And I didn't get the chance to ask you, but what do you feel as though is a misconception um, that men also experience as well?
I think a big misconception with domestic violence is like, if you see something, it's not appropriate to say something. And I look back at, the capital murder trial with my mother's abuser, and one of the things that came out during the trial was that everybody in the trailer park that she lived in knew about it, but nobody wanted to speak up and talk about what was going on behind somebody else's closed doors. And I think for me, that's, if you see something, you need to say something. If somebody had said something prior to my mother's murder, there could have been some sort of intervention.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing that. A lot of times it is the person that is the most loving and the most giving that that abusers focus on, because they have something within them that they don't have. That abuser will never be able to have that level of empathy and care and love. And so they target individuals that are able to give that out, that it just purely flows out of them without thought. That is one of the things that happen. And your mother's still a beautiful soul. She's living every day through you, and you're out, speaking her name and making sure that her legacy is continued through you. And so give me some things about your sister. What about your sister? What has she carried along from your mother?
That's just Sean.
Oh, no. Oh, I thought you had a
No,
sister. I thought
my mom.
not
Yeah.
you went through anything, but what did she carry along from her?
No, only child.
Oh,
Only
I don't know.
child.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
No, it's
That's
okay.
a mishap on my part. Hi, Jay. You are late to the party, but it's okay. We
Yes,
appreciate you joining us. Gotta put you on the spot, sir.
yes. Thank you guys for having me. Sorry for my tardiness.
It's okay. I'm just playing with you. So everyone, I'd like to also introduce Jay Madry, correct?
Yes.
That's how you say it. He is before his sister's tragic murder. Jamia,
Jamia.
Jamia, my apologies,
Yep.
at the hands of her abuser. Jay was on the brink of breaking through in the music industry, collaborating with hip hop legends like Jadakiss and Conway the Machine. Just 1 month before releasing his debut album, his world was shattered in late 2019. The grief and depression that followed were compiled by the pandemic's lockdown, in the unexpected news story about the grieving father's resilience ignited a new purpose in him. Today, Jay is founding the I'm sorry, I'm gonna pronounce your sister's name wrong, and I don't. Jamia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jamia.
Jamia.
Yep.
Jamia's Madry's Foundation in her honor, dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence. His voice and his advocacy earned him the title of the White Ribbon Knight Ambassador as in 2022. So welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
And so
Thank you,
also
guys.
I would love to ask you if you would like to share some information about your sister, her personality, what you'd like the audience to know about her spirit and her achievements.
Yes, my sister was Jamia Madry. Everybody in my family called her Mimi. She was 27 years of age. She didn't get the chance to have kids, but she was actually enrolled in college at the time. She was actually going to be working in like early child education. Um, so she was literally about to be finished graduating school for that. She just had got her first apartment. She just got her first car. She was on her way, you know. What was the other? You said the other two was you said it was what else you asked? You said
Sure, about her. Is there anything that you want the audience to know about her, her spirit,
yeah,
her
spirit,
vibe?
that's what it was. Yes,
Yeah.
my sister was she was so many people. My sister was a firecracker. She was sweet, she was loving. Um, she didn't take nothing from nobody, you know. She was Jamia. She inspired my family to change. When she changed, she used to have a very bad attitude. So when she got a little older and she started changing her attitude, um, it was inspiration for us and my younger sister as well. You know, she started seeing the change in her, and then as soon as she started changing, that's when things happened. But my sister, yes, my sister was wonderful. What I wanted people to know about her is that she didn't the way she went was definitely horrible, but she touched so many lives in my community, in my family, with her story and everything that happened to her. And she's just a light, she's a light and inspiration for us all.
Thanks for sharing that, brother. For real, that's again. I talk about this is going to be a courageous conversation, and that's what we're trying to get through. Because remember, we have survived what happened already, and sometimes we don't get permission to deal with that. What does that feel like? It's like to wake up the person that you see every day is gone. And I think Rob talked about this. There were people around that heard stuff, but never had the courage again to say something. And then that's what we're talking about here, building courage. Because right now, with everything going on, for any change to happen, we must be courageous. That means you're going to get talked about. I mean, people ain't going to rock with you for a minute. What you doing, man? You talking about this? You're a hardcore rapper. What you doing like that? You sold out. You're gonna get all that on you to try to stop you. Remember, I've known Jay since he was what? Let's say
Eight,
what? Probably
eight,
like 8 years
7.
old, 9, 7. And we ran into each other like this again. All right. I volunteered a program in Dudley Street. What was that? New Estra.
New
And
Westbrook.
yeah, this is I won't say little, but we didn't have no money to go into the buses to take them out of the community, out of Roxbury. We used to sneak them in the back of the bus and we get to Newberry Street. And these kids are like, what is this? But at the same time, look at this person stealing. Remember that? Look at this person stealing. They were aware that I am not a bad person. Everybody makes some bad choices. And we were able to have difficult conversation at a very early age. So I applaud you for being what you're doing, right? What you're doing. Giving other dudes permission through your songs and everything. Let's make the change that we make to make. For real. For
Amen
real.
to that.
Yes. I love that you said that she's like a light, you know. Um, it's important to always remember that. She can always be lighting someone else's candle, even though others may think they have dimmed her. She is still shining bright, and she's lighting up other people, and they're able to do the same. So one light can still light many.
Amen to that. Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome. And so this question is for each one of you. Where were you, when were you aware that they were in an abusive relationship? When did it happen for you? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll let Rob. Go ahead, Rob. And what's up, my brother? What's up, my
How
DB
are you,
brother?
buddy? It's always good to see your face, my guy.
Always.
I think for me, I've always kind of known that my mom's situation was different. My mom left my father when I was at a young age because he was an alcoholic, abusive, and she didn't want that, me growing up in that type of environment and household. Um, and then she kind of just, she gravitated towards other men that were kind of the same as my dad. My mom met her abuser on AOL back when, any weirdo could enter your home through a dial-up connection. And he found her in a chat room, and she was a single mom doing the best that she could do. But her only focus was her baby boy, and that was me. And she didn't get the attention from men. She wasn't told she was beautiful. She wasn't really courted in that type of way too often because she was tunnel vision on making sure I had the best life I could have. He moved in when I was 15. She was with him until she died 6 years ago, so until I was about 30. So it was a good 15-year relationship, and a lot of my teen-year trauma was the way that he treated my mother. I had to watch him be completely disrespectful. A lot of my assault and battery charges as a teenager were on him because of him putting his hands on my mother. And in fact, the first time that she got away from him was because I had gotten into a pretty, bad physical altercation with him involving the police and weapons and things like that. So it was pretty early on that I knew my mother's relationship had become abusive quickly.
Thank you for sharing that. That is one of the things that an abuser will do, right? They'll focus in, and they'll many times, and I'm speaking from my own experience, we kind of tell them how to, like, the roadmap to what it is to love us, right? And all that they do is mirror what we've given them until they no longer can be a mirror anymore, and um their true character starts to seep out, and it's almost like a mirror that's cracking, and along the way, when it finally shatters, unfortunately, the individual that's being abused, they are only looking at shards of themselves through the mirror, and they believe that this person loves them, but they're really just looking at themselves, um, and they're getting their own love, hoping that the person standing behind the mirror will finally show them the truth, which is, the truth that they're looking for, and they just continue to live in this way with lying and portraying something that they know that they're not. And it is something it probably was really effective, really affected you to be having to watch him do that, and especially through your developmental years, that you had to watch this man do these things and feel like you couldn't defend her, but you were, and I commend you for that. Um,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Jay?
Yes. I'm here.
And so when for you, same question, when did you notice, or when did you begin to get aware that your sister was in this relationship, that it was abusive in the relationship?
In my situation, I had no idea. This is one of the situations where my sister, she kept it away from me because she didn't want me to overreact, or she knows how I get down. She knows I'm, my old life, I come from the street. So she didn't want me to fall back into that that way of life I was at before. So I think she kept it from me to try to save me, to save me away from myself and what I could do. So she hid it like most women do, and that's the problem when one woman hide this problem from family members and friends and brothers. We can't step in. I couldn't step in as a brother to stop what was going on because I didn't know what was going on. So when you guys don't say nothing, not you guys, women, just anybody dealing with domestic violence, if you don't tell nobody, and my sister's situation, I didn't know until it was too late. Until after she died, that's when I found out all the stuff that was going on, all the stuff when they was fighting before. I'm hearing all these stories that would have been useful before. So yeah, I had no idea.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick. So you brought up a good point. People not saying anything, so not saying nothing. Imagine right now that all of us right now, we live. And I say we're gonna go each of us one by one. We're gonna tell everybody live our most blessed night that we have with a lover. Okay? Who wants to go first? Exactly. It's not easy to talk about anything like such. So when we say she didn't tell nobody, she didn't do this, she didn't do that, it becomes a thing that we blaming her for that. It becomes victim blaming. And then the same way you felt uncomfortable right now talking about your sexual escapades or anything live, that's what it's like to share with anybody. Yo, this is what's going on with my partner. This is where he punched a hole on the floor, to turn off my phone. All these controlling behaviors, those signs, there's nowhere for the people to share those information because it's uncomfortable. You get blamed for it. And so even a restraining order, when somebody goes to file a restraining order, that's embarrassing. What did you do for him to do that? Your fault, your. Even when we look at the media right now, we rarely hear the woman's voice. That's why Jane Doe exists. Because what the name doesn't exist, because so-and-so is a victim of domestic violence. So-and-so is this. She doesn't have a name anymore. All right. So these are the languages we need to change. We need to have them in other places as well, where we're like, yo, we can go from witnessing, because a lot of us witnessed it. That means we can't do anything. There's bystanders who see it, know that it's wrong, but sometimes chooses to do nothing. And now what we're pushing right now with Love Life Now is upstanders. That's standing up and doing something. And we're not saying to put your life in danger. It's like putting yourself in the right position to provide resources so people need to remove themselves from a situation as such. Make it easier. Let's say, like you say, without having to tell anybody. Make it find a safety plan, we call that. You gotta help people get developed with your team, your church, or whoever you're confident that I need to get out of this situation. And as friends, sometimes we see the situation, but because we don't want to lose that friendship, we let it happen, and it's not easy because that's the person you care, you love, but and you see them in a situation, it's hard to tell them that's not good for them. So those are the reason why this conversation is courageous, because hopefully after this, people can come up with ways to help one another, to provide information, and at the hardest clubs, at the hardest bar, at the hardest bingo night stuff, making the conversation everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's happening everywhere. Might as well make it happen. Might as well talk about it everywhere. We want to get to that level. The same way the NFL talked about a couple of years ago. Major League Baseball talked about a couple of years ago. Hopefully, freaking rappers can talk about it very few years ago. Pastors can get together. Freaking construction workers. When we start getting it like that, the conversation starts. People are going to feel more comfortable to tell without worrying about, oh man, this is what you're going to do. This. That's like you say, she loved you enough not to tell you. Because if she did, I'm a big brother too, man. So it's real. It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
So one of the things that I I hear you. And if you did know, maybe things, you'll never know. Everything happens, and we kind of don't know the reason, but we find out the reason. One of the things that I did, you said that you didn't find out to the end. So one of the things that happens, is that there's the level of shame that is carried around for the individual that is the survivor is so deep that it's almost deeply ingrained from the little things that start to happen with the abuser. They kind of hard code it so that they know, they like have this feeling where, oh, I can't tell anybody because I'll look crazy, or he doesn't present this way, so he looks to everybody else that he's so charismatic and he couldn't possibly do these things. He couldn't be doing these things behind closed doors, but he is, and so I understand that she might not have told you, or that she didn't, no one probably knew. Um, and again, I speak from experience that no one knew. They didn't know until the end for me, until I walked away. And that's when everybody knew what my abuser did to me. So I understand the shame that might have been living within her, because the abuser makes you feel as though you're the reason. So if you go to anybody about this, you're just talking badly about yourself. It could not possibly be me. What were the for you, what was your initial emotion when you found out? How did you process that?
Um, I was at work. I remember the day like yesterday. I was at work. Um, I was working with kids. Um, and I was working with kids with like behavior problems, and I used to always play '90s music for them. And one of the kids, it was crazy. This was probably like an hour before I found out. One of the kids was asking me to play music, and I played one of my sister's favorite songs, which is "Love Is Blind" for the girls. And they loved the song. And then literally, I got the call literally probably like not even an hour later. I'm sitting at lunch. My mom called me. My first reaction, I was angry. I was mad. I was hurt. I never felt that type of pain in my life. As a man, feeling like your little sister got killed and taken out by another man, it's a feeling that like like I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to protect her. It was so many mixed emotions at the time. I didn't know what to do. At the time, I didn't know what to do. I was so upset. I wanted to get revenge. I wanted to be there for my mom. I wanted to be there for my sister. It was so many mixed emotions.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that. That is such a vulnerable state to even be able to say, just to let people know. It's such a difficult thing to be able to talk about your emotions freely, right? And just be in that moment to be able to discuss those initial feelings and how it affected you and what you've done. We'll talk about what you've done, and we'll talk more about the foundation that you created to, put her legacy forward, and how that has changed you in different ways and what you've experienced in that. Rob, I know that this is a deep one for you as well, but what was your initial emotion as well when you found out?
So that day, April 13th of 2018, when I initially got that call, it was funny because, I was down in a different part of Massachusetts that I don't normally frequent, and I was with somebody in my network that had a different view on life in recovery. It was my second year of being heroin, alcohol, all drug free, and actually putting one foot in front of the other and doing my recovery thing. I got the call at like 9 o'clock at night. My uncle had called me and he had told me that my mother was dead. And it wasn't a call that like I ever expected, but it was a call. My mother was 60, right? Like I thought maybe she had had a heart attack or something had happened. I wasn't sure what it is. What he proceeded to tell me after that my mother's abuser picked up a barbell and caved her head in and left her dead under a blanket and was arrested around the corner at the local bar. That brought me to my knees. Now, I'm a recovering heroin addict, and I used for years because I don't want to feel anything, right? I have a problem regulating my emotions, and I don't want to feel. So my first reaction when I got that call was I wanted to stick a needle in my neck. And if it wasn't for God putting me in the position that I was in, so far away from anywhere that I had ever been before, I probably would have. And you know, it was I didn't get any answers, right? Again, I'm in recovery. I'm an addict. I want instant gratification. I want right now. I need to know. And it's a hamster wheel the way my brain works. And I had to go on a 18-month capital murder investigation before any details were released and things like that. So it was an 18-month hamster wheel of my head, so many different emotions. It was probably the hardest thing that I ever had to stay clean through. And that's where my genuine love for the Love Life Now Foundation comes, because if it wasn't for Laverne reaching out and giving me this platform to do what I do, I've advocated for substance use disorder in Massachusetts for the last decade. But when she gave me this platform to be my mother's voice, it allowed me to do what I know how to do, and that's raise my hand and talk about it. And that was the only way I was going to get better from the trauma of my mother's murder. So I'm extremely grateful.
Courage, courage, courage. All night tonight, that's what we're talking about, man. Just courage, convo. Because what happened is when we talk about it, at some point we have to stand on it, like the young people are saying, stand on it. So, and that's what we're doing. We are giving other people permission to stand on that. We see the post and say, I'm so sorry, so-and-so went through this, so-and-so, awareness, all that. But we have to do something, man. And we talk about see something, do something. But right now we have to talk about when you feel something, do something then. Because we feel something. We know something is wrong, folks. Let's stop. We hear it, we talk, we feel it around us. But for whatever reason, we don't want to make any assumption, we don't want to take action. And meanwhile, this person is just asking for help by certain behavior changes. I remember I hear people say, let a mother lover hit me. I wish. Before all that hating happened, before we start changing the name to abuser, that person was a lover. That person was a father, was a boyfriend, was a whatever. And those it doesn't go straight from 0 to 100. There were steps that a lot of us, cousins, family members, friends, co-workers, teammates, there were signs. When so-and-so's coming with a turtleneck in the summer on, we're like, oh wow, what's that? Extra makeup. The wrist pinch right there, all these bruises, we hear them. We're like, well, you got, we see that, but we feel uncomfortable talking about it, giving that person permission to like share that, or even resources around if they don't want to say anything to seek out help, but we see those signs. They're all over the place sometimes by not just languages, but behaviors everywhere. So let's give people that opportunity without judgment to just say, yo, I'm here for you. That I love you, peace. The Love Life Now is about that. No matter what you're going through. As a survivor, Jay and Rob just talked about that, where you still feel that. You talking about right now, I felt that. And as men, we're not supposed to feel. That's the other F word right there. That's the F word. No feeling. Let's numb it up, like you say. Nah, man, we're here to live. We have to feel it. We are emotionally constipated too much. It's time to release. All right. Sorry for the graphic view, but that's what we're doing here. We're making people feel uncomfortable. All right.
I couldn't agree more, right? Like if we don't stand for something, we're gonna fall for anything, right? And I know that in the beginning, like people would come to me after my mother's murder and try to offer me comfort and tell me that they knew what was going on without knowing what was going on. And my mother was a cashier at Hannaford's for a lot of years before she moved to Florida, when she was living with her abuser here in Massachusetts. And I'll never forget one of the women come over, and she had told me that she knew something was off because my mother would come in with, bruises on her arms and things like that. And my only response after going through everything I went through was, shame on you for not speaking up. You saw that, could have told somebody, and something could have intervened that could have stopped my mother from having her head caved in by a barbell. And I'll never forget that day that was told to me. And that's a huge, if we don't stand for something, we're going to fall for anything.
I mean, we can even go around. I don't know how many people are following us right now. If you ask them, have they ever seen anything remotely violent in a situation, everybody will raise their hand. But did we do anything? No, we didn't know what to do. We get stuck. And we talk about the bystander effect right there, where we assume that somebody else is going to take care of that. We assume that so-and-so saw it too. Well, I got a report. We assume that, oh, if I report it, if I say something, I'm gonna have to go to court to be a witness. I ain't got time for that. I'm only getting my hours. So we find all the excuses sometimes not to do anything that could have saved somebody's life. That part right there, we need to get with that. Just that little action could have helped somebody. And that's what we want to do, man. We want to give people permission to help the transition from being in a situation to depart from it, to remove yourself from it. Because, the verbal act, the verbal thing was going on at one point. The emotional abuse was going on. We got dudes that clean their gun in front of their girls in the kitchen. For what? Yeah, keep talking. Keep talking. All right, all right. Again, and they will tell you, I never put my hands on her. You don't have to do. You just did enough. Those call right here. When our boys are bragging about stuff like that, yo, that's for effed up, man. We don't know how to say that. We worry about that friendship, So sometimes, man, we got to step outside to take a look inside, man.
Yep, the intimidation is real. So, Antonio, you said a couple times an upstander instead of a bystander.
Yeah.
If you could just elaborate even just a little bit more, what is the difference and why does it matter?
See, I'm standing up right now. You know what I'm saying? We never stand up. We do these meetings, we talk about stuff, we get online, we do this, we try to, just keep it professional. We don't have time. Right now, as we're speaking, there's somebody back in a bag, collecting passport, trying to find social security card, looking for a place to go stay the night. Imagine what that person is looking through the drawer, doing all that other stuff going on before the abuser or boyfriend, husband, whatever it is, comes in. They got to get out of that situation. So they're standing up. And we talking about, I ain't got time to stand up. I can talk about it. I can do a report about it. I can look at the data. I can do a speech on it. I can do this, do that, do that, do that. And we ain't taking no action. That's why that's upstanding. Again, we stand by and watch all day, all night. But when you stand up, you're going to take a step. Like I say, step on that. And it's a step up and step in and make something happen. And what that means is, again, I'm not saying to go fight nobody, kick down nobody's door. I'm not giving you no cake or anything. You just got to, for example, you got a phone. You can send a text to somebody. You got a phone. You can take a picture of something going on. You can get involved without putting yourself in a dangerous situation. You can even call 911 if you want to. But I'm sorry, they're going to call you a snitch. And we can't do that, right? And that's why the community is messed up right now. We worried about that. That's none of my business. They call you feds. They find any way to box you in. They call you gay. Just have to find a way to challenge your masculinity. So you don't do nothing. So you're right here in this box. I can't do nothing because if I do, I'm going to be called name. I'm going to be looked at as this, as that. I'm not a real dude. I'm not. We make each other. We put trap for one another in the community not to have these conversations. It's time to break like we say, each one teach one. Now, Rob, myself, Jay, we got friends. We have to introduce this conversation like it's regular, like you're scoring basketball. We have to talk about it because it's happening. You put the news on right now, I bet you there's probably 2, 3, 4 right here in in Boston. 3. And I'm going low with numbers. Our behaviors, us. And I bet you those people that's doing it, they have friends that saw them arguing one time, that saw them call them names one time, owe money from them one time, whatever it is. Again, we have to make sure that we know this is not becoming a male bashing situation. I don't want that. That's why I always say men's violence against women specifically. That's why the word domestic violence is the word that covers it all. But more interpersonal violence, that's what we use. Men's violence against women specifically. Not saying that women's violence against men does not happen. Same-sex violence doesn't happen. It does happen. But that's not what we're talking about here. All right? So basically, I'm saying, man, us as guys need to, come on, man, just step forward, do something. You have nothing to lose. What? Your coolness, Your black card is still gonna be black. Your white card is gonna be black. Your gangster card is still gonna be. It's you. You got to step up. You don't lose nothing. Come on. That's why I'm upstanding. That's upstanding right there. Right there.
Okay, we standing on business. That's what you're
That's it.
telling.
There we go. Let's
On
make it a
business.
thing. Let's make it a
Like the
thing.
kiddos say, you need to stand on business and be an upstander, not a bystander.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of our key things here at Love Life Now. We preach it basically. Don't stand by, stand up. So thank you, Antonio. Yes, stand on business about it. So for also, so what is a misconception about domestic violence? So this is to all of you, and I think we'll start with Jay for this. What is a misconception about domestic violence that you believe needs to change?
One of the main misconceptions, I think, that is just only women that deal with domestic violence. Domestic violence, it affects all genders, male, female, um, gay, straight, lesbian, every sexual orientation domestic violence is in. And I actually have a friend of mine that's a male that actually dealt with domestic violence. And it's not just women, it's all of us. And men too. There's men that are in situations that they're stuck with women who are verbally abusing them. Abuse comes in many forms. You got men that's stuck with women who are controlling them, doing things like other things with money and all types of things, but with the kids. So I just want everybody to know that it comes in all types of forms. It's not just against women. It's against everybody. So we all just have to stand up and as men, the misconception from men, I feel like, is like men shouldn't say nothing or turn the other cheek. I feel like if more men said things and exposed other men with this, it would give more transparency to the problem, and make more men stand up for it. Like I have plenty of friends around my neighborhood who engaged in domestic violence, and now their lives have changed after what happened to my sister. They're not the same men that they was, because they know how much it affected me. So they see that, so now they change. So I think just those are a few of the misconceptions, I believe.
Mm. That's intervention right
It
there.
is. It is one in three women experience domestic violence. And 1 out of 4 men experience domestic violence. So it might wear a different coat, but the coat is still on. Rob, what do you feel is a misconception for domestic violence that you would like to see change?
For me, I try to keep my eyes on my own paper, right? And I try to speak from my own experiences. I'm not as educated as Antonio over here and stuff like that, right? And I think one of the biggest misconceptions I had prior to my mother's murder when it came to, abusive and domestic violence situations was if they wanted to leave, they just go. I don't think that I had enough, education and training around the circumstances and what it actually takes for somebody in that situation to, grab the passport, grab the go bag, and actually get out of that situation. I didn't had little to no acknowledgement of financial abuse
Mm,
and
mm,
some of the other things that come along with domestic violence, where it's if they wanted to leave they'd go, was as easy as it sounded, right? I For a long time, with my mother's relationship and her choosing, in a sense, as a 17-year-old boy, her choosing, not her drug addict son but her abusive boyfriend, I would say once a battered wife always a battered wife, not realizing that, for my mother to leave him was really a dangerous situation all on its own. And that came to a point on April 13th when she tried to throw him out of the house and he caved her head in. So I think that's a misconception that I'd like to see, where we provide people who do have an inclination that they do want to leave an unsafe situation. We provide them with the resources, like Antonio said, and really, the core values of what Love Life Now Foundation is doing.
Thank you so much for
what's
that.
up?
That is
What's up?
very, very true. And it
What's up?
actually 7 attempts for a survivor to actually leave. 7. And then the first 3 months, the first 90 days after they do become free, is what I like to say. That is the most dangerous time because they have now taken away the supply, whether it's energy, financial, emotional. They've taken the supply that the abuser felt as though it's right at the tips of their fingers. And how dare you think that you can get away from me? And so 7 tries. And Antonio, what
Well,
do you
there's the sense, there's a false sense of power and control that I think a lot of us grew up thinking that we're entitled to. I'm this, I'm that, I play sports, so it's like, okay, I fall down and bang my knee, so I can't cry because what does the coach tell me to say? Stop crying like a what? Okay, so I'm growing up, they put that in my head. You don't want to cry like a girl. So you got to do everything and suck it up and hold that feeling, that F word inside, and don't do nothing and be toughen up, da 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 da. So I get that message for the whole time. Don't be like that, don't be like that. So my role growing up later on, it's like, why can't I be, why should I behave a certain way so I do not get called her, my mother, my sister, my nana, my aunt, my godmother? Why? What's so wrong about her that if I fall, I can't show that because I'm going to be called one of them? To me, they're great. They're courageous. They love me. They take care of me. They give me birth. They give me food. They give me education. They give me everything. But there's something wrong with them. I get told that growing up. So okay, that's not every, but I don't have statistic in front of me. But we get those messages, and we grow up thinking, I got to continue this behavior, otherwise, because these other boys who got the same message or men now, if I stepped out of line, they're gonna check me. So the misconception is we are supposed to be this way, a certain way. We cannot step outside that line. We can't talk about this. We can't. We've had a conversation with like I said, professional athletes at one point. Now the power is there. You got a jersey. That jersey is powerful. If that jersey, whatever name is there, the number is, it's have a conversation or co-sponsors this like this. People that like that jersey is going. Let me do some research on what they're talking about here. Then that spreads. Use what you got to get what you want. That's what we're saying. If you are in position of leadership somewhere, post something, get the message out there. Again, we're not saying all of us men are like this or like that. Unfortunately, because we are who we are, we don't do nothing sometimes, people assume that we're a certain way. Meanwhile, we're not like that. I've missed buses because I was afraid to run by a person to catch the bus because of what I look like, what I'm running. And I'm like, little do I know when the purse get clenched or whatever is going on, you're more safer with me around than that. But because of statistics, because of our past, brothers and fathers have done before, we get treated like such. Like we don't have no conversation in this. We can't talk about this. So guys, let's take the power back that way and give others permission to control the narrative that's going on right now in our community. Every home, every state, everywhere you go, bring it. Just bring it. It's okay. It's all right.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And so one of the things that I would like to know is what are some of the challenges that you face as a male ally in the fight against domestic violence, and how have you addressed them?
I can speak on that. I've been doing this for over almost 30 years. Yeah, about 30 years I've been doing this. Like again, some people will say, "I never knew about this. I never knew about the statistics. Knew about it." So it's if it takes one person to rent the idea, okay, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just rent it to own. If you were to do this, if you were to do that, here's what would happen when you see a situation like this. Rob talked about the bystanders that were around. If I can take people to a quick exercise, real quick, we're going to shut it down after this. I ask everybody to close your eyes and imagine. We're going to do some magic right now. Imagine, close your eyes. The woman in your life that you care about the most. That could be your mother, sister, grandma, aunt, a woman in your life. You got that? Now, imagine she's walking down the street, walking to church, in the classroom, in the kitchen. Just picture her somewhere, USA. Now, imagine somebody walks by, a young man, start calling her name. You this, you fat, you ugly, you ain't gonna be nothing. Why you still got this? Why you're this, just be criticizing. That person's doing that to your loved one. Then they decide to start throwing things at her. Then they step it up higher, grabbing her, physically hurting her. Now imagine a third person sees what's going on, look and check, and just keeps walking away. Open your eyes. All right? Now, if I ask people, we're going to do this in the chat probably later on, how did that make you feel to know that somebody watched your loved one going through something and was in position to do something and choose to do nothing? What kind of name do we have for people like that? How do we feel about that person? You know, it's those kind of things to go inside yourself to imagine that empathy piece. Put yourself in that situation to see what it's like to watch your loved one going through something and people walking by. Da, 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 da. At the same time, let's be clear. That person might just froze because I've never witnessed stuff like that. What do? I don't know what to do. I don't have no resources. No one is talking about this. That's none of my business. So this is why we exist. So we give people, when they're in a situation like this, not to be a bystander and froze and not do nothing. That's why we do the things that we do. They told me not to drink coffee. It's too late.
And Rob, same question as an ally yourself. What have you experienced? In your fight? What has been, what's the challenge that you've experienced and you've had to address? How have you addressed it?
Like my struggles with, kind of the mission I've kind of taken on and using my voice is I tend to discriminate against abusers, right? And in the industry that I work in, right, as a community outreach coordinator for substance use treatment, right, you talk about drug addiction, domestic violence, alcoholism, they kind of play hand in hand, right? Like, for instance, the man that murdered my mother said in court, I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't drunk. For a long time, I owned and operated some male sober living homes, right? And criminal background, we see these things, they tell me their stories. They tell me they have a background or a history of abuse towards females, things like that. I have a hard time wanting to help them, right? I have a hard time putting that hand in there and trying to lead by example and show them there's a different way. At least I used to, right? And that was a big struggle for me, right? Like I would, stick my nose up at other people in my network because, Jimmy down the street just got taken in on a DV on his wife, right? Like it was hard for me to kind of work with that population and demographic of folks, right? Same thing. I'm a sexual abuse survivor and sex offenders, things like that. I have a hard time not taking out my own resentments and anger towards other people that, kind of fall in the category as my mother's abuser. I think it's gotten better over time, and I'm more open-minded to lead by example that, hey, if I can, treat somebody for their alcoholism or their substance use abuse, and or their substance use disorder and, kind of get them into treatment and show them a different way, then, maybe it's one less woman he hurts, and be able to kind of change my perspective a little bit and change my, thinking so my actions follow. And that's kind of the position I take now is to, kind of lead by example, not just the example for these folks, but I have a 9-year-old daughter too, right? And that's the biggest piece of all this is that, the example that I set is what my sons are going to follow and what my daughter is going to marry. So I've kind of adapted that mentality in my whole kind of mission and what I do.
Thank you. To have the bias is real. It's really difficult. And it is something like you have to actually personally work through that, right? It's almost like you go through your own training and you go through those sensitivity trainings just to be able to deal with your own bias towards those individuals. So I commend you for doing that and being able to see how you can help them to shape their outcomes to be different and how they can actually take a different route. Maybe if you were going to do A, you can actually do you know, B through Z. There's so many other options that you can do, and actually learning how to speak about them versus not speaking about them. Sure, Antonio, go ahead. I seen
No, I
that
just
hand
want to
go
make
up.
sure that people know that there is help before something happened. That there's programs out here in Boston where you can start. There's a 40-week program you can take. You don't have to wait till the court tells you to take that course. You don't have to wait till something happened. Then you are forced or court ordered to do these classes. If you know there's an issue, you feel something. You're waking up mad every day. You punching walls. You hiding stuff. You're going through phones and all that stuff. It's getting there. You're going there already. Remove yourself. There's classes there, man. You're volunteering them. Don't wait till you are ordered. The help is out there, and if you know friends who are going through that, advise them to reach out for the assistance that they need. A lot of this stuff is learned behaviors too. Like I say, you are raised with these belief system, and when you believe, you take action. When you action, there's going to be consequences to all your actions. So this is the culture, unfortunately, that we've been raised in. We messed up. We have to do this all over. We got to press the restart button. We want to let you know what? I'm gonna press restart. I ain't gotta be like this no more. I can restart and be this type of person for the betterment of my community, my school, my church, my mosque, my temple, whatever it is that's your community. You can do it again. Press restart. I dare you. Press it. That's it. And again, you're gonna lose some stuff, but that's when we're gonna start over. Or we're gonna be right here again next year. We're going to do the 5th annual, 7th annual, 8th annual, and what? Come on. Stand up.
Yep, stand on business. Stand on business. That's gonna be with the courage. It's also stand on business.
Shout out to
And
this
so
system.
and so, you know, Rob, what were some of the support systems or resources that helped you to cope with your loss?
Honestly, like I said before, it was Laverne when she reached out and she showed me kind of for me, right? Like in order for me to overcome my drug addiction, I had to raise my hand and I had to talk about it, right? And it was therapeutic value in one person helping another, and that's what got me to, keep the needle out of my neck and stay on the straight and narrow, right? And when my mother got murdered and Laverne reached out, I think it was like the 6th annual Heal-a-thon. She called an audible like that, and she did that walk in my mother's name, and she brought me out and plugged me in to a community of all you guys that just kind of took me in and loved me up just like my mother would do when I couldn't love myself. And meeting other men and other survivors and being able to walk in the fashion show and the white ribbon pledge and all of these things, and giving me this platform to use my voice as I did with my drug addiction, and to try to facilitate resources for people that are struggling on my own platforms has been the biggest, you know, type of therapy that I could ask for, right? And again, just like in my addiction, one therapeutic value of one person helping another, and hearing people's stories, and being so grateful that some of these women got out before they ended up just like my mother, and to be able to use, like, my mother wasn't a tragedy. God used her as a weapon, right? So other people wouldn't have to end up the way that she ended up. And to continue to advocate and talk about that and be my mother's voice, I don't think if it was for Laverne, I would have been able to stay clean through the tragedy, to be honest.
Shout out
She is
Laverne. Shout out
amazing.
Laverne.
Yes. Look
The
at us. We
MVP.
couldn't wait to say it at the same time. Well, what Laverne did at that time was she put her hand and her heart into supporting you. And that's one of the biggest things that, Love Life Now is all about. It's putting our hand and our hearts together so that we bring awareness and we fight against domestic violence. And so I'm so glad that, just like me, I'm so glad that she was able to be there for you, to be your support system, to let you know that someone else was there, that she seen you, she heard you, and then give you a platform to then speak so eloquently about your mother and her story and how her life mattered, and how it still matters to this day. And I'm just so happy to be able to hear about all that you had, all the love that you had for her, and all the love that she had for all those that were around her as well. Thank you for sharing that. So I just wanted to Say if there was one thing, if there was something that you could leave the audience with, a key takeaway about domestic violence awareness and prevention, what would that be? Whoever wants to take the floor for that one. It can be Rob or Antonio.
If anything, what I'll say is we don't know what goes on behind closed door. So we have to use our imaginations. And sometimes, because we always see the ending of the story, and it ends with what Jay's talking about, and what Robbie's talking about, by death. And in death, remember when sometimes you can see there's a lot of flowers. We get flowers when it's over. And same time, same thing. When you're in a relation, when there's a relationship going on, there's an argument that happened, or a disagreement, or a conversation that rises, and it rises, then somebody gets disrespectful with the verbal. It goes with the verbal abuse. Then from the verbal, it gets, what, I'm gonna show you something. The showing you something then to hands-on, and from hands-on, okay, babe, okay, I'm sorry. The apologies come in. Guess what you get when you apologize sometimes? You might get some flowers. Okay, then we go back next week, same thing happened. So there's a cycle of abuse that happened, and we're not aware of that. The sorry, the quote unquote make up sex. You know what I'm saying? All these things that we have going on, so that we made the cycle continues that way, and no one is able to get out of it because we don't know how to. We don't know that this is a behavior, this is a pattern, this is a quote unquote relationship. That's how we are. And it works for me, it works for so and so. We're not talking about it, we don't see nothing wrong with it. It's reevaluating yourself, how you feel in that situation, how you feel as a bystander watching something going on. You hear the neighbors fighting, you hear the noise, you see whatever. Oh, it's not my business. Yes, make it your business. And I don't mean to knock on their doors or anything again. We have to go to Love Life now, get some resources. And what can I do if I'm in that situation? I don't want no one to know that I did this. I don't know what to do. We provide you with, safety plans to help a person, or provide information at your establishment or wherever you are. Go to lovelifenow.org. That's a real plug right there.
Yeah, that's right. You got to plug it. You got to play it. It was coming, but you just
Yeah.
beat me to it. But
Yeah.
Rob,
Look at the hands. Look at the hands on the heart. You said open hand earlier. These are
She
my
did.
hands back in the
those are
day when
your
I'm like
hands.
this and took the picture. It's right there. We have to put our hands. Let's get our hands dirty for real. Let's not talk about it anymore. We're done.
I
Thank
think
you.
I think for me, the two biggest takeaways are a lot of the same things that we talked about tonight, right? Is if you see something, say something. I use that word intervene quite a few times because there were quite a few times that somebody could have intervened and stopped my mother from being murdered. And, as hard as it is, the other takeaway for me is, and it's a perspective that, I don't see too often, is that, as hard as it is to leave, and how Antonio talked about a safety plan to get out of there, like as the child of a woman who is taken by her abuser, that left me as a child, a grown man child, right? Like with so much trauma, so much hurt, and so much pain. And I don't think that was something my mother was thinking about as she stayed in this relationship. If we look at, if our lives are taken by our abuser, what that leaves our loved ones with, it may have people think a little bit more seriously about reaching out to Love Life now and putting together that safety plan, because losing my mother to domestic violence has absolutely destroyed me. My sense of self, my masculinity, who I am as a person, right? My recovery was in jeopardy. So many things, the trajectory of my life, changed that day. And I really and truly don't think any of that was anything my mother thought about, that it could escalate, get to that point, and what she would be leaving behind. So if I can get just one mom or one dad to think about, if her situation or his or her situation escalates to that point, what they leave behind, and maybe motivate somebody a little bit to at least peek into some of the resources that you guys are all offering, and to put together a safety plan, and to, utilize those resources to the best of their abilities. Because honestly, like, I know my mother didn't want to leave me this way. I know my mother didn't want to leave me with this trauma. I know my mother didn't want to leave me with, she has grandkids she never was able to meet, right? And I just don't think that's a perspective that, anybody in this situation kind of realizes or looks at. So that's my input.
Thank you so much. You know, uh, for for so long, for too long, right? Men's voices in this fight against domestic violence has been overlooked. And tonight, I thank you so much for reclaiming that space. To both you and Antonio, thank you for your transparency, your honesty, and most importantly, your vulnerability to use your voice in the way that you have. And I know that it has helped someone today become an upstander instead of a bystander. And if they don't know somebody, if they once only knew about being a bystander, today they know what an upstander is, and they're going to stand on business. So together we can definitely continue to break the silence, and we can challenge the stigma, and we can join our hands and our hearts in this fight to create a safe space for everyone. So to everyone here tonight, everyone listening in, if you know someone who needs assistance, just let them know, one, that they're not alone. And there are many different resources that they can reach out to. Some of them that we like to make sure that we give some plug to as well is the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 800-799-SAFE. There's the Massachusetts Safe Link Hotline, and that number is 877-785-2020. And you can always, for any kind of resource, you can call or text Love Life Now at 888-LLN 9876. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm going to pass it back over to Charity. Thank you, guys.
Wow. First of all, thank you all for the fruitful conversation that we had. So thankful for your courage to be able to speak about this. I feel like it's such a taboo issue to talk about, and I'm glad we have this space to be able to speak. And Tanya, shout out to you for being such a great moderator today. So at this time, I want to open up the floor for questions. I didn't see anything in the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat. And I believe you can also unmute yourself, sorry, to ask your questions. And I believe we have Jenny, if you don't mind unmuting yourself.
Hi, sorry about that. Took me a minute to find all my things. This was a beautiful conversation. I wonder if we could talk about some of the things within our communities that, we that are abuse, but are normalized in a way so that we can begin to think about things. Because when we think about, someone's putting hands on, like, okay, that's something, but there are other ways that abuse shows up, and I wonder if that panel with their expertise could speak about that.
I'll speak on that. One thing I did for maybe 7 years of my life, I worked with battle intervention program, BIP, which is different than anger management. So most men were court ordered to take this class before they get their kids back from DSS or before they go back from back to the home. Before anything, you have to go to this 40-week class. So what you hear is there's a part where the person get to tell you what took place that night, and start from the beginning. And these men who are in this class will tell you, that we were eating, and I found out there was an onion peel in the spaghetti, and from there I lost it. And to know that those are triggers that, sometimes, again, those are not excuses. These are real people that gets triggered or make decision to be violent based on something as small as an onion peel or 3 ice cubes versus 4 ice cubes. She know how I like my water after work. She has to put 4. Now I got to put my hand upside her. This is real stories that over the years you see men catch cases of 209As. So those things have started. The hands-on is the final part, but the verbal abuse exists. We talk about financial abuse. The psychological part is like, look what you made me do. Why you have to say? Why you have to talk about this? Why have to look? Why have to get dressed like that? It starts with those things. Someone will buy you a cell phone and you don't answer the phone when they call you. I bought you the phone for you to answer me. Now you're not answering me. That's a problem now. It's those are little subtle behaviors that goes unnoticed sometimes, which leads to the hands-on. So it goes on that way too. That's a good question.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Jenny, for that wonderful question. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see any hands up. Yep, feel free to ask in the chat as well if you don't want to ask on live. I actually have a question. Um, I was thinking about this as we were discussing it. And I feel like when you think about law enforcement, right? When it comes to domestic violence situations, even with women, with the misconception of women being the only ones that are in the situation, there's not enough help until a lot of times it's too late. How do you feel that law enforcement can really take seriously these issues for both men and women?
I've been in a situation where I've made phone calls because I was a tenant somewhere, and there was noise and there was violence in the upstairs. No, again, I don't know, I don't see it, but you could hear it. And I remember there were times that I have contacted with authorities, and the feedback is, dude, why don't you just find someplace else to live? Why you gotta stay there? Why this? Why that? Like it's my fault that this is going on. So this really hits home for me because sometimes the assistant that you're looking for goes unnoticed, and I'm a dude calling because I was afraid of what's going on upstairs. Okay, so for the person, there's going to be somebody's going to get hurt. I didn't want that, so I called for assistant upstairs investigation. We can't do nothing about it. They have to do this. They have to do this. They have to do that. So they ask you for the person that is in that situation right there and then in front of the person of the abuser or the batterer or the person who's chooses to put the hands on, to tell them, yeah, he did this, he did that. Then they leave, take a report, and they leave them and said, no more touching, no more this, no more that, and leave the person right there with the person. You leave them again. Then you come back and say, oh, we should have done something. We could have done something. That happens. That happens. So I agree, we need training at the cadet level, where again, to have young people talk about this right now, whether they're their first year rookies, how to answer a call. Are they going to bring resources to the call when they answer it? Or are they going to look at this person, man? Come on, man. Why you do this? Go for a walk and come back later. No, he's going to come back more pissed off. Would you call the police on me, dude? With those decisions, those things that we say to do, we need to learn how it works. Again, it goes back to safety plan. Having a safety plan all the time. Have the police being part of your safety plan. When you see this phone call come in, know that this is what's going on. Build the relationships. That's why we talk about community building. So yeah, I agree with the training for young cadets very early on, or people in leadership in general. That can make a difference.
Okay, thank you so much. Go ahead, Sordelli.
I just wanted to, first of all, thank Tanya, Rob, and Antonio for joining us today and keeping it real. We appreciate that. And we Jay Sean, my apologies. We just came out of Teen Violence Awareness Month last month. And, we're talking about what seems to be adult situations, but we often know that it doesn't start when you're 20 something or 18. It can start earlier than that. So, what is your input, advice, feedback anything that you can give in regards to our young people and how we can support them, educate them on the same topic.
I think it's we talk about meeting people where they are, and right now they're all over Instagram, Facebook, all these platforms. We got to go there now. We got to come up with conversation like this. But you know, I make it more interactive. Bring somebody they love. Create a safe space for them to start tweeting about it. If we got to make posts or whatever comedy, not saying that situation is funny, but find a way to meet them because they're big on this thing called trolling. I don't know what that is, but it's a big thing. Find a way to make something like this happen. Meet them where they are, and you know what? Things will happen. They will have a conversation because we see what happened not too long ago. The minute what's his name there, Puffy or Diddy. They took that thing and ran with it to a point where I started saying this because when we saw the video of the elevator, you know, that's no Diddy. That part right there. All that other stuff, the oil, what we was talking about, we ain't seeing it. We didn't see it. But that one right there, we saw it with our own two eyes. The video captured that. Now start saying no Diddy when your boys or whoever your friends are behaving like this. You know they did some shit like that. Oh, sorry. You know they did something like that. Say no Diddy to them. Make them feel uncomfortable. All right. This is what we're doing. So let's make it hot. Let's make it appealing to talk about this right there. Let's make it happen. It's not something you have to be ashamed of anymore. Let's talk about it.
I couldn't agree more. You know, with awareness comes prevention and and intervention, right? And I know from my own household, my children know that their dad's a drug addict, right? My children know how their grandmother was taken from us. And, you know, my children also know that I lead by example and it's a safe space for us to talk about our feelings and, you know, what is domestic violence, you know, dad, what is an abuser? What's a junkie, right? We talk about all these things because, you know, I'm a firm believer that if, you know, we're not talking about it in our households, history is bound to repeat itself. And I'm here working on breaking generations of abuse and addiction, right? And you know, with the substance use stuff, we bring it into the schools. We talk about it at a young age. I think a lot more of that needs to happen with domestic violence. I think that, you know, little Susie needs some education as to why, you know, mom wakes up with a black eye if, you know, the spaghetti's burnt, right? And more of that awareness and prevention and getting the new generation, whether meeting them where they're at on Instagram and Facebook. It's why I use my platforms to use my voice the way that I do. I think that the more that we bring awareness to it at a younger age, the new generation will be able to point it out and, you know, identify it as wrong.
Video games. Let's create a video game. Safety plan. How to get the person that's leading to get out of the situation. And then you become a winner. Stuff like that. Let's do that. There's a lot of creative folks on that side right now. Get together.
I definitely like the video game. I'm quite sure it'd be very yes, absolutely. I don't see that there are any more questions. So I wanted to give Antonio and Rob the floor to say any final thoughts, feedback on just this topic and what your thoughts are before we close out.
I feel like I spoke a lot today. And then I got so much to say. Again, like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. That's all I know. And any opportunity to just have conversation like this, I get geeked. Like I'm ready for it. Because I know what it takes. I remember when I first heard about DV or interpersonal violence. I was a student athlete at Northeastern University on a track scholarship, and I thought I was God gift to the world. I'm fast, and I think I was slimmer and all that kind of stuff. And this one dude, my man Byron Hurt, he was a quarterback. Him and this guy named Jackson Katz came to start talking to the teams. And he started talking about, you know, the bystander behaviors. And I was being that dude in the crowd who was uncomfortable. And I started try to be funny with the conversation. And I remember being checked and I got angry and I kept that in. Then I realized I was a bystander so many times. I never knew what it was. I never knew what to do. I was that sucker or that punk that watched somebody, yell at his girlfriend back then on Huntington Ave, at the bus stop. Like, it's none of my business. They're not students, so whatever. I've been that dude. I don't know what happened when they left. Why, if she made it or not. So being able to look back and say where I could have made changes and I didn't know how to, I choose not to at that time. Now, right now, it's a must for me. So the opportunity to do this right here, I just want to thank you all, the sisters, to get together. And I was approached at a heelathon where I was wearing high heels, to talk about this talk a while back. And yes, we do a month annual heelathon where I do wear high heels. Rob and I, we wear high heels and walk a mile in the shoe of a subscriber because we don't know what it's like to run away from a situation. I'll never know that. I'll never know what it's like to be a fear for my life that way. I'll never know. So what do? We take one time a year, we put high heels on and walk down the street, whether it's raining or it's cold or whatever, and to see how we struggle. How my knees start falling apart, my feet start hurting. But at the same time, I'm only doing it for a mile. This person's doing it for 7 years. Who am I to just complain and not understand? So there's that empathy piece, putting yourself in someone else's shoe gives you the reassurance that, what, somebody doesn't have to rob. There can't be no other Robs out there losing their loved one that way. We can make a difference that way, any way that we can, even if that means looking silly.
Yes, thank you, Antonio. Go ahead, Rob, if you have any
I
thoughts.
think for me, it's the immense gratitude I have every time I'm asked to do this, whether it be Love Life Now or any other organization, because, I learned so much. And the more that I learn, the closer I get to my mom. My mom and myself stayed stuck in guilt and shame for a lot of years, too afraid to raise our hands and ask for help. And I think that, with my mother's murder and my recovery approaching 10 years clean now, by the grace of God, and to have that connection with my mother that I didn't have when she was alive, to know we were similar in the ways that we are, is that, if somebody's out there stuck in guilt and shame and too afraid to ask for help and raise their hand, that, I'm so grateful that all you guys are out here doing what you're doing and making, that safe place safe for somebody to do so. Again, I speak on my experience. I go back to the example that I'm setting for my children. I think that we need to really, look at, the young kids, the young men that we're raising, and give them more education and awareness that love shouldn't hurt, and how we're supposed to treat the people that we love. And, that it's okay to get upset, that if we get upset, we can control our anger and really work on some of those things. And again, I'm extremely grateful for all the work that you guys are doing, and to have that connection with my mom, even when it's been 6 years since her murder, to continue to do these things and learn something new to be able to pass on to help somebody else. I think you reach one, teach one, right? Or teach one, reach one. And that's really what the ideal goal of all of this really is. So thank you all so much for the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you both. Thank you both for coming on here, being vulnerable, being courageous, being able to speak up for all the men out there that are not able to or can't or don't feel like they should. It is important to have these conversations, and I'm so happy that we're having it now, and I'm praying that it continues to happen because everyone needs to understand the importance of this. So thank you both for this fruitful conversation. I want to thank Tanya for being such a great moderator. Thank you for leading the discussion. Thank you for giving it the ability to flow. And I enjoyed every minute of the conversation. And I hope everyone on here did as well. I also want to give a special shout out to all the members of the Divine Eye, especially all the sorors of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Even more especially my chapter for being so supportive throughout this process, and ensuring that we have this conversation today. Without further ado, I hope that everyone on here had the opportunity to really gain something out of this conversation tonight. And earlier, as Tanya mentioned, some of the resources that's on the chat. Tanya, do you want to quickly just go through them one more time?
Sure. And so I will start off with the first plug, the first one. So you can reach out to Love Life Now Foundation. Our contact number is 888-LLN-9876. You can call or text that number There will always be someone there to respond at any given time. 25/8. There will always be somebody there to respond. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 800-799-SAFE, which is 7233. Or the Massachusetts Safe Link Hotline, which is 877-785-2020. Just remember, for any of the individuals that are witnessing it, that have gone through it, that there's always somebody there for you. There's always support. For the survivors, you are not alone. We hear you. We see you. We will give you the voice that you deserve. No one should ever make you feel love should hurt. You are important, you are valuable, and your life, most importantly, is a vest at Love Life Now, 888-LLN 9876. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Yes. And finally, before we close out, we will share for this event so we can
Oh,
get some really good and fruitful feedback for our next event. And please feel free to give your suggestions and ideas for how we can improve on these types of conversations. And with that, I would like to thank you all for your time. You could be anywhere, but you came here to enjoy this conversation with us. And I thank you for your time. And I wish you all a good night.